Mother Bear, falling from the top of the apartment building. What this human baby did put everyone in tears. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of apartment 403, casting golden stripes across the living room floor. Lily Morgan sat cross-legged on the carpet, stacking colorful blocks while her 10-month-old daughter, Emma, watched with wide, curious eyes. The baby's chubby fingers reached out, knocking over the tower with a delighted squeal that echoed through their cozy home. "You're quite the little demolition expert, aren't you?" Lily laughed, ruffling Emma's wispy blonde curls. Outside, the Pinewood Heights apartment complex buzzed with the usual morning activity. Neighbors shuffled to their cars, coffee mugs in hand, while maintenance workers tended to the flower beds that lined the building's entrance. Jacob Bennett, the building superintendent, was inspecting the roof after several residents had complained about strange noises during the night. What Jacob discovered made his blood run cold. There, huddled against an air conditioning unit, was a large brown bear. Not just any bear, a mother bear with desperate, frightened eyes. How she had found her way to the roof of a 12-story apartment building in the edge of suburban Oak Ridge was beyond comprehension. The wildlife reserve was miles away, yet here she was, trembling and clearly disoriented. "Jesus Christ," Jacob whispered, carefully backing away and reaching for his phone with shaking hands. He dialed animal control, keeping his eyes fixed on the massive creature. "Hello? Yes, we have an emergency at Pinewood Heights. You're not going to believe this, there's a bear on our roof." The dispatcher's voice crackled with disbelief. "Did you say a bear, sir?" "Yes, a full-grown brown bear. She looks scared out of her mind. Please hurry." As Jacob quietly retreated toward the roof access door, the bear's ears perked up. She rose to her full height, sniffing the air and letting out a low, rumbling growl that made Jacob's skin prickle with fear. The mother bear began to pace, her massive paws making dull thuds against the rooftop. She moved closer to the edge, seemingly searching for an escape route from this strange, elevated prison. Down in apartment 403, Emma had crawled to the balcony door, pressing her tiny palms against the glass. Lily had left it open just a crack to let in the fresh spring breeze. With the determined focus only babies possess, Emma pushed against the door, widening the gap just enough for her small body to squeeze through. "Emma, no!" Lily called, noticing too late as her daughter disappeared onto the balcony. She rushed after her, heart hammering in her chest. On the roof, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The mother bear, agitated by the growing crowd gathering below, backed away from Jacob's careful approach. Her heavy body bumped against the low parapet wall. For one terrible moment she teetered on the edge, massive paws scrambling for purchase on the smooth concrete. Then she fell. A collective gasp rose from the crowd below as the enormous animal plummeted through the air. Time seemed to slow as the bear tumbled, her dark fur rippling against the clear blue sky. Instead of crashing to the ground, however, she hit the awning of the 11th floor, bounced off with surprising elasticity, and landed with a thunderous crash on the 4th-floor balcony, the very balcony where Emma had just crawled. The impact shook the entire building. Flower pots shattered, and the metal railing bent under the weight of the bear. The mother bear lay still, blood seeping from a gash on her side, her eyes glazed with pain and confusion. Just a few feet away, Emma sat frozen, blue eyes widening at the massive creature that had literally fallen from the sky. Lily stood paralyzed in the doorway, a scream caught in her throat. Her maternal instincts screamed to rush forward and snatch her baby to safety, but fear kept her feet rooted to the spot. Any sudden movement might startle the injured bear and put Emma in even greater danger. Emma, however, showed no fear. She tilted her head curiously at the bear, whose labored breathing came in heavy, painful gasps. The baby's innocent face showed only concern for the suffering creature before her. With the simple compassion that only children possess, she began to crawl toward the wounded animal. "Emma, no," Lily whispered, her voice tight with terror. "Please, baby, don't move." But Emma continued forward, drawn by something her mother couldn't understand, a connection that transcended species, a pure empathy untainted by learned fear. The distance between baby and bear closed inch by terrifying inch. Below, the crowd had fallen silent. Phones recorded every heart-stopping moment. Emergency vehicles wailed in the distance, still minutes away. Everyone watched, helpless, as the unthinkable unfolded before their eyes. The mother bear's eyes focused on the approaching child. She lifted her massive head slightly, nostrils flaring as she caught Emma's scent. The beast could easily kill the tiny human with a single swipe of her powerful paw. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. What happened next would change everyone who witnessed it forever. Emma reached the bear, her tiny hand extended. The massive creature's eyes, filled with pain and fear, locked onto the approaching child. Time stood still as everyone held their breath. Then, defying all natural instincts, the mother bear lowered her head and let out a soft whimper. Emma's small fingers touched the bear's wet nose with gentle curiosity. "Oh my God," someone in the crowd whispered. "She's touching it." Lily's entire body trembled as she watched her daughter interact with the wounded predator. Every maternal instinct screamed at her to rush forward, but instinct also told her that any sudden movement might provoke the bear. She remained frozen in the doorway, tears streaming down her face, silently praying for her baby's safety. The bear's massive body shuddered with each labored breath. Blood continued to seep from the gash in her side, pooling on the concrete balcony. Emma, noticing the red liquid, pulled her hand back and made a concerned cooing sound. The baby looked back at her mother, then at the bear again, her face scrunched with worry that seemed impossibly mature for her 10 months of age. "Animal control is 5 minutes out," Jacob shouted from above, his voice tight with tension. "Fire department's coming up with a rescue ladder." The bear's eyes were growing cloudy, her breathing more shallow. Emma crawled closer and placed her small palm on the bear's massive forehead. The contrast was striking. Tiny pink fingers against dark brown fur, innocence meeting raw wilderness. The crowd below watched in stunned silence as Emma began to pat the bear gently, the same way Lily patted her when she was upset or couldn't sleep. Connor Adams, a wildlife veterinarian who lived on the second floor, pushed through the gathering crowd. "I need to get up there," he shouted, medical bag in hand. "That bear needs immediate attention." Security guards held him back. "Sir, it's too dangerous. We need to wait for animal control." "That bear is dying," Connor argued, struggling against their grip, "and there's a baby up there." Inside the apartment building, chaos erupted as residents evacuated, some crying, others filming the unfolding drama. Michael Hayes, an off-duty firefighter living in apartment 405, was already making his way toward Lily's unit. He moved cautiously down the corridor, approaching Lily from behind. "Ma'am," he whispered, not wanting to startle her or the bear. "I'm Michael Hayes, a firefighter. Don't make any sudden movements." Lily nodded almost imperceptibly, her eyes never leaving her daughter. "The rescue team is setting up below," Michael continued in a low, steady voice. We're going to get your daughter out safely." On the balcony, something extraordinary was happening. Emma had crawled around to the bear's injured side and was now gently patting the area around the wound, making soft babbling sounds as if trying to comfort the animal. The bear remained still, watching the child with an expression that seemed almost grateful. Suddenly, the bear's ears perked up. A helicopter approached, hovering over the building to assess the situation. The downdraft sent debris scattering across the balcony, and the noise was deafening. The mother bear growled, her muscles tensing as the pain and fear overwhelmed her once more. "No!" Lily screamed as the bear shifted, nearly rolling onto Emma. Michael lunged forward, but before he could reach the balcony, something even more unexpected happened. The bear, with deliberate gentleness that defied her massive size and injured state, used her snout to nudge Emma away from her wounded side, pushing the baby toward the apartment door, toward safety. It was as if the mother bear recognized the human child's vulnerability and, despite her own suffering, sought to protect her. Emma tumbled backward, landing on her diapered bottom with a surprised expression. She didn't cry, but instead reached out toward the bear again, clearly wanting to continue her ministrations. The bear protected her. Michael whispered in disbelief. "Did you see that?" Lily couldn't speak, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Below, Connor Adams broke free from the security guards and raced into the building. "Hold that helicopter back," he shouted into his phone. "It's agitating the bear." The helicopter backed off, but the damage was done. The mother bear was now fully alert, her pain giving way to fear and confusion. She attempted to stand, her massive weight causing the already damaged balcony to groan ominously. "The structure won't hold much longer," Michael warned, his trained eye assessing the bent metal and cracked concrete. "We need to get everyone off that balcony now." Just then, a crack like a gunshot echoed through the air. The balcony lurched downward several inches, tilting precariously. The bear roared in surprise and fear, scrambling to find steady footing. Emma, startled by the sudden movement, finally began to cry, loud, frightened wails that cut through the chaos. What happened next occurred so quickly that witnesses would later debate exactly what they'd seen. As the balcony tore away from the building, the mother bear lunged forward, wrapping her massive paw around Emma's tiny body. But instead of crushing the child, she seemed to cradle her, pulling Emma close to her chest as they both began to fall. Lily's scream tore through the air, primal and desperate. Michael grabbed her before she could throw herself after her child. The partially detached balcony hung at a 45-degree angle, creaking and groaning as pieces of concrete rained down on the panicked crowd below. The bear and Emma slid down the tilting surface, the bear's claws scraping desperately for purchase. At the last possible moment, the bear's back paw caught in the twisted metal railing. They stopped their descent, now dangling 4 stories above the ground, the massive bear somehow still cradling the tiny human child against her fur. "Emma!" Lily screamed, struggling against Michael's restraining arms. "My baby!" Connor Adams burst onto what remained of the balcony, breathless and wide-eyed. "Don't move," he shouted, assessing the precarious situation. "The bear is protecting the baby." Indeed, despite her injuries and terrifying predicament, the mother bear had positioned herself so that Emma was secure against her chest, shielded from the drop below. The baby's crying had quieted to hiccuping sobs, her tiny hands clutching the bear's thick fur. The crowd below had scattered to safety, but phones still recorded the extraordinary scene. A wounded wild animal apparently sheltering a human infant from harm. News helicopters had arrived, capturing aerial footage that would soon go viral across the globe. Why is she protecting the baby? Michael asked in bewilderment. Connor shook his head in amazement. Bears have powerful maternal instincts. Something about the baby must have triggered her protective response instead of her predatory one. Lily collapsed against the doorframe, her legs no longer able to support her. "Please," she begged, her voice raw. "Please save my baby." The fire department's ladder truck had extended its rescue platform as close as possible to the dangling pair, but any sudden movement risked dislodging the bear's tenuous hold. Animal control officers conferred frantically with wildlife experts, none of whom had ever encountered a situation remotely like this one. "We can't tranquilize her while she's holding the child," one officer argued. "If she loses consciousness, they'll both fall. But if we don't sedate her somehow, she might panic and—" The officer couldn't finish the sentence, the implications too horrible to voice. Below the dangling bear and child, rescue workers hastily assembled an inflatable landing pad, though everyone knew it couldn't fully protect against a fall from such height. Time was running out. The bear's strength would soon fail, her injured body already pushed beyond normal endurance. Then, from the gathering crowd, an unexpected figure pushed forward. Savannah Reed, a slender woman in her 60s with silver hair and determined eyes, approached the police barricade. "Let me through," she insisted. "I can help." "Ma'am, please stay back," an officer warned. "I worked with bears for 30 years at the Oak Ridge Wildlife Sanctuary," Savannah explained urgently. "I know how to communicate with them. Please, there isn't much time." After a moment's hesitation, the officer lifted the barrier. Savannah approached the base of the building, directly beneath the dangling bear and child. She cupped her hands around her mouth and made a series of low, rumbling sounds, calls that mimicked a bear's natural communications. The mother bear's head swiveled toward the sound, her ears perking up with recognition. "She's listening," Connor observed from above, hope flickering to life. "What is that woman doing?" Savannah continued her unusual communication, her voice carrying clearly in the tense silence that had fallen over the scene. The bear responded with a soft chuffing sound, her massive body slightly relaxing despite her precarious position. "She's telling the bear we're trying to help," Connor explained, recognizing the technique from his wildlife training. "She's speaking her language." Savannah's calls changed in tone, becoming more insistent, more directed. To everyone's astonishment, the mother bear began to shift her position, adjusting her grip on both the railing and the baby. She was responding to the human commands, seemingly understanding that cooperation offered the best chance of survival. The rescue platform inched closer. A firefighter in safety gear leaned out, arms extended toward the child. "Just a little more," he encouraged. "We almost have her." The mother bear looked down at the tiny human bundle against her chest, then at the firefighter reaching toward them. In that moment, her eyes reflected an intelligence and decision-making capacity that would later cause scientists to reconsider everything they thought they knew about animal cognition. With exquisite care, the bear loosened her grip on Emma, allowing the firefighter to gently extract the child from her fur. The baby whimpered at the separation, her small hands still reaching for the creature that had protected her. "She's safe," the firefighter announced, as he pulled Emma securely onto the platform. A cheer erupted from the crowd below, but the drama was far from over. With the child safely rescued, the mother bear's grip on the twisted railing began to slip. Her wounded body had reached its limit, her strength finally failing. Connor Adams looked into the bear's eyes and saw something that would haunt him forever. Acceptance. The mother bear knew she was about to fall. She had saved the human child, and now her own fate was sealed. "No!" Connor cried out. "We can save you too!" But gravity could not be denied. As the rescue platform pulled away with Emma secured, the mother bear's claws scraped against metal one final time before giving way entirely. She plummeted toward the ground, her massive body twisting in the air. Time slowed once more. The crowd's collective gasp seemed to hang suspended, just like the bear in mid-fall. First responders braced themselves for the inevitable impact. Savannah Reed's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. This magnificent creature who had just performed an act of cross-species compassion would now meet a tragic end before their eyes. But fate had one more surprise in store. Ethan Marshall, a construction worker who had been renovating the lobby of Pinewood Heights, had been operating a mechanized cherry picker when the commotion began. As the mother bear fell, Ethan made a split-second decision. He swung the extended arm of the machine directly into the bear's path, its padded platform creating an unexpected safety net 30 feet above the ground. The impact was tremendous. The cherry picker groaned and tilted precariously but miraculously held. The mother bear landed with a heavy thud, momentarily stunned but alive. The crowd erupted in disbelieving cheers. "She's alive!" someone shouted. "The bear survived." Ethan, white-faced but steady, carefully began lowering the platform with its extraordinary cargo. His hands trembled on the controls, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "I don't believe it," Connor breathed, watching from above. That was impossible. The mother bear lay motionless on the platform, her breathing shallow but present. Blood still seeped from her wound, now joined by fresh injuries from her fall and rescue. As the cherry picker descended, Connor raced down through the building to meet it on the ground floor. Medical bag clutched tightly in his hand. Lily, still shaking with emotion, was escorted to the ground level where paramedics had taken Emma. The baby appeared miraculously unharmed, though thoroughly frightened by her ordeal. She clung to her mother with desperate strength, burying her face in Lily's neck. "She's perfectly fine," the paramedic assured Lily, completing his examination. "Not a scratch on her. It's a miracle." "The bear," Lily whispered, her voice hoarse from screaming. "What about the bear that saved my baby?" The paramedic pointed to where a growing team of veterinarians and wildlife experts surrounded the cherry picker that had just reached ground level. "They're working on her now. That bear's a hero, ma'am." Connor Adams had pushed his way to the front of the medical team, his experienced hands already examining the injured animal. "She's lost a lot of blood," he announced grimly. "Multiple fractures, internal bleeding likely. We need to stabilize her for transport immediately." The mother bear's eyes fluttered weakly, consciousness fading. Animal control officers who moments ago had been prepared to shoot the dangerous predator now worked alongside veterinarians to save her life. The crowd, which had grown to hundreds, watched in respectful silence, many wiping away tears at the unexpected drama they had witnessed. Savannah Reed approached Lily and Emma, her weathered face etched with wonder. "In 30 years of working with bears, I've never seen anything like this," she said softly. "That mother bear recognized your daughter as a baby, as someone to protect rather than harm. It goes against everything we know about wild bear behavior." Lily looked down at Emma, who had finally calmed in her arms. "Why would she do that? Risk her life for my daughter?" "I don't know," Savannah admitted, "but I'd like to find out." She hesitated, then added, "There's something else you should know. The way she was acting on the roof, the desperate searching, I think she might have been looking for something. Or someone." "What do you mean?" "I think she might have cubs somewhere. A mother bear doesn't wander into the city without a powerful reason." This revelation sent a ripple of concern through those who overheard. If the mother bear had cubs, they were now alone, vulnerable without her protection. At the impromptu medical station, Connor worked frantically to stabilize the bear. "We need to get her to the wildlife center immediately," he ordered. "She needs surgery, blood transfusions, everything we've got." Jessica Brooks, head of the Oak Ridge Wildlife Center, pushed through the crowd. "Transport vehicle is 2 minutes out," she announced. "What's her condition?" "Critical but stable," Connor replied without looking up from his work. "She's a fighter." "And quite the media sensation already," Jessica added, glancing at the news helicopters circling overhead. "Every major network is carrying this live." Indeed, the incredible story of a bear saving a human child had captured global attention in real time. Hashtags were trending, video clips going viral by the second. What had begun as a local emergency had transformed into an international sensation. As emergency workers prepared the mother bear for transport, Logan Carter, a forest ranger from the nearby Black Ridge National Forest, arrived breathless on the scene. "I came as soon as I heard," he said, approaching Jessica. "I think I know why this bear was here." Jessica turned to him with surprise. "You do?" Logan nodded grimly. 3 days ago, poachers were spotted in the northern section of the forest. We found evidence they'd been tracking a mother bear and her cubs. We thought we'd scared them off, but now... He gestured at the injured bear. "I think they separated her from her cubs, and she's been searching for them ever since." A new wave of murmurs spread through the crowd as this information circulated. The story had taken yet another turn, from natural disaster to heroic rescue to possible wildlife crime. "If those cubs are out there alone, they won't survive more than a day or two," Logan continued urgently. "They're too young." Connor looked up from his medical work, determination hardening his features. "We need to find them, now." "But the forest covers thousands of acres," Jessica objected. "Where would we even start looking?" "Perhaps we already have our answer," Savannah said, joining their conversation. She nodded toward Emma, still clutched in Lily's protective embrace. That bear made a connection with this child. There might be a way to use that connection. "What are you suggesting?" Connor asked. "Bears have an extraordinary sense of smell," Savannah explained. "This mother recognized the baby's scent. If the cubs share her scent markers, then perhaps we could use Emma's scent to help locate the general area where the mother and cubs were separated," Logan finished, eyes widening with realization. "It's a long shot, but it might work." Lily, who had been listening intently, stepped forward. "If there's any chance it could help save those cubs, we'll do it. Emma and I both." Michael Hayes, the off-duty firefighter who had helped during the rescue, looked skeptical. "You want to take a baby into the forest to look for bear cubs? After what just happened?" "Not exactly," Logan clarified. "We just need something with Emma's scent on it. A blanket, a toy, something she's had close contact with. Our search dogs could use it as a reference point." "I have her blanket in the diaper bag," Lily offered immediately. As this plan took shape, the emergency transport for the mother bear arrived, a specially equipped vehicle from the Wildlife Center. Connor supervised as his team carefully loaded the sedated animal into the vehicle. "I'm going with her," he announced, climbing aboard. "I'll keep her stable during transport." Jessica nodded. "I'll coordinate the search team for the cubs. Logan, you'll lead the ground effort?" "Already on it," the ranger confirmed, pulling out his phone to call in additional resources. Savannah turned to Lily. "Would you and Emma be willing to come to the Wildlife Center? Your presence, your daughter's presence, might help keep the mother bear calm once she regains consciousness." Lily hesitated only briefly before nodding. Of course. Whatever helps. As the transport vehicle pulled away with Connor and the mother bear inside, the crowd parted respectfully. Many people were openly weeping, moved by the extraordinary events they had witnessed. The story of the bear who fell from a building only to save a human child had already captured hearts across the world. At the edge of the crowd, unnoticed in the commotion, a weathered pickup truck idled briefly before pulling away. Inside, two men watched the scene with cold calculation. "This complicates things," the driver muttered, his face shadowed beneath a worn cap. His companion spat out the window. "The cubs still fetch a good price. Asian market doesn't care if the mama bear's a celebrity." The truck disappeared down a side street, its occupants unaware that their license plate had been captured by multiple news cameras that had been recording continuously since the drama began. At the Oak Ridge Wildlife Center, a flurry of activity preceded the arrival of the mother bear. The operating room was prepped, blood supplies checked, and the center's best veterinary surgeons stood ready. This was no ordinary patient. This was now the most famous bear in the world. The transport vehicle pulled into the private entrance, where Connor immediately began directing the unloading process. "Careful with her right side," he instructed as they transferred the bear to a reinforced gurney. "Those ribs are definitely broken." Jessica Brooks supervised the preparation, issuing rapid-fire instructions to her staff. "I want hourly updates once she's out of surgery. Security at all entrances. No unauthorized personnel, no exceptions. The press is already swarming the front gates." Indeed, news vans had begun to gather outside the Wildlife Center, reporters eager for updates on the bear's condition. Social media had exploded with the story, the hashtag number Mama Bear trending worldwide. Video clips of the bear protecting Emma during their fall had been viewed millions of times in just the first hour. Connor performed a final check of the bear's vitals before they wheeled her into surgery. "Hang in there," he whispered to the unconscious animal. "Those cubs need you to pull through this." As the medical team disappeared behind swinging doors, Lily arrived with Emma in her arms. They were escorted to a private waiting area, away from the growing media presence. Michael Hayes had accompanied them, still protective after their shared ordeal. "Is there any news about the search?" Lily asked anxiously. "They're assembling teams now," Michael replied, checking his phone. "The ranger, Logan, says they've got thermal imaging equipment being brought in. If those cubs are out there, they'll find them." Emma had fallen into an exhausted sleep against her mother's shoulder, her small face peaceful despite the chaos surrounding her. Lily stroked her daughter's hair, still processing the miraculous events of the day. "I keep seeing it," she whispered, "the way that bear held her, protected her. It was so human." Michael nodded solemnly. "I've been a firefighter for 12 years. Seen plenty of strange things, but never anything like that. Do you think she knew? That the bear was trying to save her?" Michael considered the question. Kids that age don't have the fear adults do. Maybe Emma saw something in that bear that we couldn't see, something beyond our fear and assumptions. In the forest, 30 miles away, the search for the orphaned cubs had begun in earnest. Logan Carter led a team of rangers and volunteers, coordinating with helicopter support above. They had started at the location where poacher activity had been reported, working outward in a strategic pattern. Savannah Reed moved with surprising agility through the forest, despite her age. She carried Emma's blanket in a sealed bag, presenting it periodically to the trained search dogs. "Bears don't usually stray far from their cubs," she explained to the team. "If the mother was separated by force, the cubs would likely stay hidden nearby." The search continued as dusk approached, the forest growing darker and more foreboding. Flashlights cut through the gathering gloom, and the search dogs worked with increasing urgency. Time was running out for the young cubs, who would be vulnerable to predators without their mother's protection. Back at the Wildlife Center, the surgery had stretched into its 5th hour. The mother bear's injuries were extensive: multiple broken ribs, a fractured hip, internal bleeding, and deep lacerations. The medical team worked tirelessly, their determination fueled by the knowledge that this bear had somehow transcended the natural order to save a human child. In the waiting area, Lily had dozed off with Emma still clutched to her chest. She was awakened by a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Miss Morgan," Jessica said softly, "the surgery is finished." Lily blinked awake, instantly alert. Did she make it? Is she alive? Jessica nodded, a tired smile crossing her face. "She pulled through. She's a fighter, that one. Connor says the next 24 hours will be critical, but he's cautiously optimistic." Relief washed over Lily. Thank God. And the Cubs? Any news? Not yet, but Logan's team won't stop until they find them. As if on cue, Jessica's phone rang. She answered immediately, her expression growing intent as she listened. "Are you certain? Both of them? Alive?" A pause, then, That's not possible. Are you absolutely sure?" Another pause. "Bring them in immediately, and Logan, be careful." She ended the call, her face pale with shock. "What is it?" Lily asked, alarmed by the woman's expression. "Did they find the cubs?" "Yes," Jessica confirmed, her voice unsteady. "They found them, but there's something else. Something that changes everything we thought we knew about this situation." "What do you mean?" Jessica took a deep breath. "The cubs aren't alone. They're being protected by another bear, a much older female, and according to Logan, she has a very distinctive white scar across her right ear." "I don't understand," Lily said. "Why is that important?" "Because," Jessica explained slowly, 20 years ago, we rescued and released a female bear cub with that exact marking. Her name in our records is Aurora. She was found alone, her mother killed by poachers." So, Aurora was hand-raised at this very wildlife center, by humans, specifically by Savannah Reed. The implications hung in the air between them. If this was indeed the same bear, it suggested something extraordinary. That Aurora, herself rescued and raised by humans, was now protecting the cubs of another bear, possibly passing on that same compassion that had been shown to her decades ago. "Savannah never told us she suspected a connection," Michael said with disbelief. "I don't think she knew," Jessica replied. "Not until they found the cubs. This changes our understanding of the entire situation." The door opened and Connor entered, still wearing his surgical scrubs, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. "The mother bear is stable," he announced. "She's a remarkable animal. By all rights, those injuries should have been fatal." "Connor," Jessica said urgently, "they found the cubs. And something else. Something you need to hear." As Jessica explained the discovery of Aurora, Connor's scientific mind raced with the implications. "Are you saying there could be a connection between the mother bear's protective behavior toward Emma and her own relationship with this older bear? That she learned compassion from another bear who had learned it from humans?" "It sounds impossible," Jessica admitted. "But so does a wild bear protecting a human child during a fall." Connor ran a hand through his hair, processing this new information. "If it's true, it would transform our understanding of ursine cognition and learned behavior. It suggests a level of complex emotional intelligence we've never credited bears with possessing." "The cubs are being brought here now," Jessica said, "along with Aurora, if they can safely tranquilize and transport her." Lily looked down at Emma, still sleeping peacefully. So much of this happened because my daughter crawled onto that balcony. It's like she was meant to be there at that exact moment. The fateful interconnections were indeed remarkable. A baby's curiosity, a mother bear's fall, a construction worker's quick thinking, a decades-old rescue coming full circle. Coincidence seemed too small a word for the extraordinary chain of events. In the forest, Logan's team had successfully tranquilized Aurora, the elderly female bear with the distinctive ear scar. The two cubs, frightened but unharmed, were secured in special transport carriers. Throughout the process, Aurora had been remarkably calm, almost as if she understood the humans were there to help rather than harm. "I've never seen anything like it," Logan remarked to Savannah as they supervised the loading process. She stood her ground but didn't charge or show aggression. It was like she was waiting for us. Savannah's eyes never left the sedated form of Aurora as they lifted her onto the transport vehicle. 20 years, she whispered. 20 years since I bottle-fed that cub, taught her to forage, prepared her for release. I never thought I'd see her again. "You think she recognized your scent?" Logan asked. "Perhaps. Bears have remarkable olfactory memory." Savannah reached out a tentative hand, lightly touching the white scar on Aurora's ear. "Hello, old friend," she murmured. "You've been busy, haven't you?" As the convoy made its way back to the Wildlife Center, the story continued to spread across the globe. Wildlife experts, behaviorists, and scientists weighed in on the remarkable events, many skeptical until shown the unedited footage. Something unprecedented had occurred, something that challenged fundamental assumptions about the divide between humans and wild animals. At the Wildlife Center, preparations were underway to receive the cubs and Aurora. A special area had been set up where the cubs could be safely reunited with their mother once she recovered enough from surgery. "We'll need to keep them separated at first," Connor explained to Lily, "until we're certain the mother is stable enough for the reunification. It's a delicate process even under normal circumstances." "And Aurora?" Lily asked. "What will happen to her?" "That's complicated," Jessica admitted. "She's elderly for a wild bear, probably nearing the end of her natural lifespan. Returning her to the wild might not be the kindest option, especially considering her apparent comfort around humans. But keeping her in captivity after a lifetime of freedom wouldn't be right either," Connor added. "Perhaps," Savannah suggested, having just arrived back from the forest operation, "we could establish a protected area, a sanctuary where she could live out her days in semi-wild conditions but with monitoring and supplemental care as needed." As they discussed possibilities, Emma stirred in Lily's arms, blinking awake. Her small face scrunched momentarily before relaxing. She looked around curiously, apparently untraumatized by her extraordinary experience. "Hey, sweetie," Lily murmured, kissing her daughter's forehead. "You're quite the little hero, you know that?" Emma babbled happily in response, reaching out toward the window that overlooked the medical wing where the mother bear was recovering. "I swear she knows," Michael remarked, watching the baby's focused attention. "Kids are more perceptive than we give them credit for." A commotion outside announced the arrival of the transport vehicles carrying the cubs and Aurora. Staff members rushed to assist, carefully unloading the precious cargo. The cubs, one male and one female, were tiny, vulnerable bundles of fur, whimpering for their mother as they were carried inside. Aurora was moved to a separate containment area, where she would be monitored as she recovered from sedation. Savannah insisted on staying with her, unwilling to leave the bear she had raised so many years ago. "Would it be possible," Lily asked hesitantly, "for Emma to see the mother bear?" From a safe distance, of course. I just feel like there should be some closure to their connection. Connor considered the request. The viewing area outside the recovery room has reinforced glass. Once she's more stable, perhaps tomorrow, it might be possible. I'd actually be interested to see if there's any recognition. As night fell, the wildlife center remained a hive of activity. The mother bear's vital signs continued to improve, exceeding all expectations. The cubs were examined, found to be healthy, and settled into a secure, temperature-controlled environment where they eagerly accepted bottle feeding from the trained staff. In the small staff lounge, Lily sat with Emma, watching the news coverage of their extraordinary day. The media had already dubbed it the miracle at Pinewood Heights, with experts and commentators struggling to explain the mother bear's protective behavior. "They're missing the point," Lily said softly to Michael, who had stayed by her side throughout the ordeal. "They keep trying to find some scientific explanation, but maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe it's just compassion. Something that crosses the boundaries we think exist between species. Maybe your daughter helped remind us all of something important," Michael agreed. "That before we learn fear and prejudice, we're capable of connecting with any living thing." Outside in the hallway, Jessica received an urgent call. Her expression darkened as she listened. When she entered the lounge, her face was grim. "The police just called," she announced. "They've identified the poachers from the news footage. Both have prior convictions for wildlife trafficking." "Have they been arrested?" Connor asked, joining them. "Not yet. They've disappeared, but their truck was found abandoned near the state line. And there's more. Evidence in the vehicle suggests they're part of a larger operation. They had specialized equipment, documentation, even medical supplies for keeping live animals sedated during transport." Logan shook his head in disgust. "Bear parts fetch enormous prices on the black market. Cubs can be sold as exotic pets. It's sickening." "The good news," Jessica continued, "is that this case has garnered so much attention that resources are being devoted to tracking down the entire network. What happened today might end up shutting down one of the largest wildlife trafficking operations in the region. A small silver lining to an already remarkable story." In the recovery room, the mother bear's eyes fluttered open briefly. Despite the sedation and pain medication, she seemed restless, moving her massive head from side to side as if searching for something. "She's looking for her cubs," Connor observed, checking her vitals. "That maternal instinct is incredibly powerful, strong enough to overcome natural fear and aggression," Savannah noted, having come to check on the mother bear's progress. "Strong enough to protect a human child instead of harming it." "Do you think," Connor asked hesitantly, "that Aurora could have somehow taught her that? That compassion for another species could be learned behavior among bears?" "Science would say no," Savannah replied thoughtfully. "But after today, I'm not sure science has all the answers." In another wing of the facility, Aurora had awakened from sedation. Unlike most wild bears in captivity, she showed no signs of stress or aggression. She simply sat in her temporary enclosure, her wise old eyes taking in her surroundings with what seemed like recognition. When Savannah approached the viewing glass, Aurora moved toward her immediately, pressing her graying muzzle against the barrier that separated them. "She remembers me," Savannah whispered in amazement. "After all these years." The connection between past and present, between human compassion and animal memory, seemed to have come full circle. What had begun with Savannah rescuing an orphaned cub 20 years ago had somehow led to that cub, now elderly, protecting another mother's cubs, who in turn had protected a human child. The chain of compassion, stretched across decades and species, defying explanation yet undeniable in its reality. As midnight approached, the Wildlife Center finally quieted. The mother bear slept peacefully, her condition stabilized. The cubs, exhausted from their ordeal, curled together in sleep, safe at last. Aurora rested in her temporary home, occasionally glancing toward the recovery room as if aware of her former charge's presence nearby. Lily had been given a small room to rest with Emma, the center's staff unwilling to send them back to the apartment after such a traumatic day. As she lay beside her sleeping daughter, Lily found herself reflecting on the extraordinary chain of events that had unfolded. A mother bear, separated from her cubs by human cruelty, had fallen onto her balcony. That same bear had then saved her daughter from certain death, at great risk to herself. And now they had discovered that this bear had herself been protected by another bear with a connection to humans. It seemed like the plot of a fairy tale, yet it had happened. The evidence was undeniable, captured on hundreds of phones and news cameras. The world had witnessed something that challenged fundamental assumptions about the boundaries between humans and wild animals. As Lily drifted toward sleep, she wondered what tomorrow would bring. The mother bear's reunion with her cubs. Perhaps a moment of recognition between Emma and the bear who had saved her life. And beyond that, a new understanding of the complex emotional lives of creatures we so often dismiss as operating on mere instinct. Outside the Wildlife Center, beneath a sky scattered with stars, the forest seemed to hold its breath, as if aware that something profound had shifted in the relationship between its wild inhabitants and the humans who shared their world. The story of the mother bear and the human baby had only just begun to unfold its deeper meanings and revelations. Morning arrived with golden light streaming through the windows of the Wildlife Center. The mother bear had made it through the night, her condition upgraded from critical to stable. Connor Adams reviewed her latest vitals with cautious optimism. "She's stronger than we expected," he told Jessica. "Bears are remarkably resilient, but even accounting for that, her recovery is extraordinary." In the adjacent habitat, the cubs had been fed and were exploring their temporary home with growing confidence. They showed no fear of the humans who cared for them, perhaps because of Aurora's influence during their time apart from their mother. "It's time," Connor decided. "Let's reunite the family." With careful preparation, the team arranged for the mother bear to be moved to a larger recovery space connected to where her cubs waited. Emma and Lily were invited to watch from behind the safety of reinforced glass, along with Savannah, Michael, and the others who had been part of this remarkable journey. When the mother bear caught the scent of her cubs, her entire demeanor changed. Despite her injuries, she lifted her head, nostrils flaring with recognition. The staff opened the connecting door, and the cubs tumbled through, their small bodies quivering with excitement. The reunion brought tears to everyone's eyes. The mother bear gathered her cubs close with her uninjured paw, making soft sounds of comfort as they nuzzled against her. It was a moment of pure love that transcended species, the universal bond between mother and child. Emma, watching from Lily's arms, pressed her small hands against the glass. The mother bear looked up, meeting the baby's gaze across the distance. For a long moment, they regarded each other, the wild animal and the human child who had shared an extraordinary connection. "She remembers," Savannah whispered, watching the bear's focused attention. Then, in a gesture that would later be analyzed and debated by scientists around the world, the mother bear gently nudged one of her cubs forward, as if showing the human child her own offspring, an introduction across the species barrier. Emma laughed, a bright, joyful sound that seemed to please the mother bear, who blinked slowly before returning her attention to her cubs. "What happens to them now?" Lily asked, her voice thick with emotion. "We'll release them back to the wild once she's fully recovered," Jessica explained, "but in a protected area far from poachers. Aurora will remain here in a spacious natural habitat. She's too accustomed to human presence now, and too elderly for the challenges of truly wild living." In the weeks that followed, the story of the Pinewood Heights miracle continued to captivate the world. The investigations into the poaching ring led to multiple arrests and the discovery of an international wildlife trafficking network. New legislation was proposed to strengthen protections for endangered species, dubbed Emma's Law, in honor of the baby whose unexpected encounter had sparked these changes. The mother bear and her cubs thrived under the care of the Wildlife Center's staff. True to their word, when she had fully recovered, they were released in a remote, protected section of the national forest, their freedom and safety secured by the extraordinary chain of events that had begun with a fall and ended with a new understanding of cross-species compassion. Lily made a tradition of bringing Emma to visit Aurora at the Wildlife Center each month. The elderly bear always seemed to recognize them, approaching the viewing area with calm interest rather than the wariness typically shown by wild animals. On their first anniversary visit, Savannah met them with exciting news. "The rangers spotted the mother bear and her cubs last week," she told them, showing them photographs. "They're doing wonderfully. The cubs have grown so much." Lily studied the images of the healthy bear family, feeling a connection that defied easy explanation. "I still don't fully understand what happened that day," she admitted. "Why she protected Emma instead of harming her." Savannah smiled, watching as Emma, now walking confidently on her own, pressed a small hand against the glass where Aurora rested on the other side. "Perhaps we don't need to understand it completely," the older woman suggested. "Maybe it's enough to know that compassion can cross boundaries we once thought impenetrable. That kindness once given creates ripples that extend beyond our knowing." As if in agreement, Aurora pressed her graying muzzle against the glass where Emma's hand rested, separated by a barrier, yet connected by something profound and mysteriously beautiful. In that quiet moment, the true miracle revealed itself, not just in the dramatic rescue that had captured the world's attention, but in the reminder that the capacity for compassion existed in unexpected places, waiting only to be awakened by a chance encounter between a falling bear and a curious child.